The checkpoint smelled like metal and sweat. Do-hyun stood in line with dozens of other travelers, his worn backpack hanging from one shoulder. The station was busy today. Aliens of every species moved through the security gates, some with multiple arms carrying luggage, others floating in containment bubbles filled with strange gases. Do-hyun kept his head down and waited his turn. He had been traveling for 2 months now. The journey from Earth to the outer rim took time, even with modern jump gates. His body ached from sleeping in cramped passenger ships. His clothes were clean but wrinkled. He looked like any other civilian making their way through the galaxy, trying not to cause trouble. The Krellian guards noticed him immediately. There were 4 of them stationed at this particular gate, tall creatures with scales that shimmered green and gold under the harsh station lights. Their eyes were vertical slits that tracked movement like predators. The tallest one, who seemed to be in charge, pointed a clawed finger at Do-hyun. "You. Human. This line." Do-hyun nodded politely and stepped toward the indicated scanner. The other travelers in line seemed relieved they hadn't been chosen. He had learned during his travels that Krellians enjoyed exercising their authority. Humans were still new to the galactic community, still viewed with suspicion or amusement depending on the species. The guard captain's name tag read Zil. He circled Do-hyun slowly, examining him like a specimen. The other 3 guards, Rek, Torm, and Quen, moved closer. Their body language suggested they were bored and looking for entertainment. "Soft skin," Rek hissed, his translator rendering the words with barely concealed contempt. "What business does a human have in Krellian space?" "Just passing through, sir," Do-hyun replied quietly. "I have all my documentation in order," Torm laughed, a sound like rocks grinding together. "They always say that. Did you hear? Humans think they can just travel anywhere now, act like they own the galaxy. We've been spacefaring for less than a century," Quen added, leaning against the scanner console. "My grandmother's grandmother was already traveling between stars when their world was still burning fossil fuels." Do-hyun said nothing. He had heard variations of this speech before. On the station at Proxima, on the colony world of New Sol, at the refueling depot near the Horsehead Nebula. The words changed, but the message stayed the same. Humans were newcomers, primitives, not worthy of respect. Shil stepped directly in front of him, close enough that Do-hyun could smell the sharp scent of his breath. "Show me your identification." Do-hyun reached slowly into his jacket pocket and pulled out his travel card. The thin piece of crystalline technology contained all his permits, his medical records, his travel history. He held it out with steady hands. Shil took the card and tossed it to Freck without looking at it. "Scan it." The process took longer than necessary. Freck made a show of examining every detail, occasionally making comments to the other guards in their own language. The translator didn't pick up those words, but the mocking tone was universal. Several other travelers had stopped to watch. No one intervened. No one ever did. "Where are you going, soft skin?" Sil asked. "Zarian Prime," Do-hyun answered. "Zarian?" Torm's head tilted. "That's a memorial station. What would a human want there?" "Paying respects. To who? Your kind barely fought in the war." Do-hyun's jaw tightened, but he kept his voice level. "May I have my identification back, please? I have a transport to catch." Sil's eyes narrowed. "You're very polite. Too polite. What are you hiding?" "Nothing, sir. I just want to complete my journey. I don't believe you." Sil gestured to the backpack. "Empty it." Do-hyun's shoulders tensed slightly. "That's not necessary. My documents are in order. I decide what's necessary." Zil smiled, showing rows of sharp teeth. "Empty the bag or we'll do it for you. And we won't be gentle." A small crowd had gathered now. A Thulian merchant watched with sad eyes. A group of Vixarian traders whispered among themselves. A human couple stood nearby, their faces filled with sympathy and fear. But no one spoke up. This was Krellian space. The guards had authority here. Do-hyun carefully slipped the backpack off his shoulder and knelt down. He unzipped it slowly and began removing items one by one. A change of clothes, a sealed container of human food, a water filtration bottle, basic toiletries. He placed each item on the dirty checkpoint floor with care. "Faster," Rek ordered, kicking one of the items aside. Do-hyun continued at the same measured pace. He pulled out a small medical kit, a portable charging unit, a sealed envelope with official markings. The guards watched with growing impatience. "What's this?" Torm snatched the datapad from Do-hyun's hands before he could set it down properly. The device activated at his touch, displaying a photo of a woman with kind eyes and a little girl with pigtails. They were laughing in the image, sitting in a garden somewhere on Earth. "My family," Do-hyun said quietly. Torm held it up for the others to see. "Look, the soft skin has a mate and a hatchling." "How adorable," Quen mocked. "Tell me, human, do you cry yourself to sleep missing them?" The other guards laughed. Torm tossed the datapad carelessly back toward Do-hyun. It hit the floor hard and the screen cracked with a sharp sound. Do-hyun stared at the damaged device for a long moment, then carefully picked it up and set it aside. His hands were completely steady. "Keep going," Sil ordered. Do-hyun reached into the bag again. There wasn't much left inside now. His fingers touched something at the very bottom, wrapped in protective fabric. He hesitated for just a fraction of a second. Quen noticed. "What's that? What are you hiding?" "It's personal," Do-hyun said softly. "Everything in this bag is personal," Rex said. "That didn't stop you from showing us." "Take it out." Do-hyun pulled out the bundle carefully. It was wrapped in plain cloth, folded with precise corners. The package was about the size of a large book, flat and rectangular. He held it against his chest. "Give it here," Sil demanded. "I would prefer not to." "I don't care what you prefer." Sil's voice grew dangerous. "Hand it over, or I'll have you arrested for refusing a security inspection." Do-hyun looked up at the captain. For the first time, there was something different in his eyes. Not anger, not fear, something else entirely, something that made Sil pause for just a moment. Then Do-hyun extended the bundle toward him. "Please be careful with it." Sil took the package with a sneer. "What's the matter, soft skin? Afraid we'll damage your precious belongings?" He passed it to Quen, who began unwrapping the cloth covering with exaggerated slowness, drawing out the moment. The crowd pressed closer, curious now about what had made the human so uncomfortable. "Let's see what our primitive friend values so much," Quen said, pulling away the final layer of cloth. What lay beneath made him stop moving entirely. The silence that fell over the checkpoint was absolute. Even the ambient noise of the station seemed to fade away. Quen stood frozen, the uniform hanging from his claws like it had suddenly become radioactive. The Vexarian pilot spoke again, louder this time. "That's a drop corps uniform. Terran orbital drop corps." More aliens in the crowd began to react. Some stepped back. Others pressed forward, trying to see better. The name meant something. Even those who hadn't been directly involved in the Xerian conflict had heard stories. Shill's voice came out rough. That's not possible. Humans don't have elite units. They barely have a military." "Look at the patches," someone else in the crowd said. An insectoid alien with multiple eyes, each one focused on different parts of the uniform. "Those are combat deployment markers." Quen's hands were trembling now. He carefully, very carefully, laid the uniform flat on the inspection table. As it spread out, more details became visible. The fabric itself told a story. There were scorch marks along one sleeve, carefully preserved. Small tears that had been repaired with expert precision. Sections that had been patched with slightly different material. Probably field repairs done in combat conditions. This wasn't a dress uniform kept safe in a closet. This was gear that had seen real action. The patches were numerous. Each one represented something. Theater of operations, unit designation, rank markers, and yes, deployment markers. Small colored tabs that indicated where and when the wearer had fought. There were more of them than anyone expected. Torm bent down slowly and picked up the metal he had dropped. He handled it like it might explode. Looking at it now, really looking, he could see details he'd missed before. The metal wasn't just dark. It was made from something that seemed to catch light in strange ways. The star shape had points that were almost sharp, precise beyond what seemed necessary for decoration. "What is this metal?" he asked again, but his tone was completely different now. Respectful, almost fearful. Do-hyun didn't answer immediately. He was watching the guards with an expression that was hard to read. Not angry. Not satisfied. Just tired, the Vexarian pilot answered for him. "If it's what I think it is, that's a void star. My grandfather told me about them. Only a handful of humans have ever received one." "What does it mean?" someone in the crowd asked. "It means," the pilot said slowly, "that whoever wore it did something extraordinary in zero-gravity combat, shipboarding actions, station defense, fighting in vacuum." She looked at Do-hyun. The stories say you have to save an entire fleet to earn one. Not a fleet, Do-hyun said quietly. A ship, one ship was enough. Zil found his voice again. How many? How many people were on the ship? 3,412. The number hung in the air. Quen's voice was barely a whisper. Medical ship? Do-hyun nodded once. The implications were staggering. Medical ships in war zones carried wounded from all sides. It was one of the few rules that most species observed. If someone had earned a medal for saving a medical ship, they had done something beyond ordinary valor. Vrek was examining the shoulder patch more closely now, careful not to touch it. How many drops does this represent? Another voice from the crowd, a grizzled alien who looked like a retired military officer himself. Each of those stripes is a deployment. Each deployment for drop corps is a minimum of 6 months in active combat zones. Everyone counted silently. There were 9 stripes. 4.5 years, the officer continued. That's 4.5 years of orbital drops. Do you understand what that means? Most didn't, but those with military experience did. Orbital drops were considered one of the most dangerous military operations in existence. You launched from a ship in high orbit, fell through atmosphere or vacuum in a tiny armored pod, and landed in enemy territory. The casualty rates were horrific. Doing it once took courage. Doing it dozens of times took something else entirely. Torm noticed something else on the uniform. There were names, written in small, precise lettering along the inside collar. Dozens of names. He leaned closer, trying to count them. 62, Do-hyun said, seeing where he was looking. 62 names. Why? Those were my unit. The ones who didn't come home. The checkpoint was completely silent now. Even the station's ventilation systems seemed to hold their breath. Shill's training finally kicked in. He was a captain of the guard, not just a bully. His voice came out formal, almost mechanical. The rank insignia. What rank did your brother hold? Master Sergeant. That meant something too. Sergeants were the backbone of any military. Master Sergeants were veterans who had survived long enough to lead others. In a unit with casualty rates as high as Drop Corps, reaching that rank meant you were either incredibly skilled or impossibly lucky. Probably both. The old Thulian merchant finally spoke up, his voice carrying across the crowd. I was on New Thulios, during the evacuation, when the raiders came. He looked directly at Do-hyun. Were you there? Do-hyun met his eyes. I was there. Then you saved my family. The Thulian's voice broke. We were on the last transport. The raiders had breached the landing bay. We thought we were dead. Then the humans came, falling from the sky in those pods. I watched them fight. I watched them die to give us time to escape. A woman in the crowd spoke up, her voice shaking. My colony was at Zerion Prime, the station battle. We were in the civilian section when the enemy boarded. Do-hyun's face changed slightly. Pain flickered across it. I was in a shelter with my children, she continued. We could hear the fighting outside, getting closer. Then it stopped. When we came out, there were bodies everywhere. Most of them human. They had held the corridor. Wouldn't let the enemy through. Another voice. My medical ship was crippled at Zerion, dead in space. We had no weapons, no way to run. Enemy ships were closing in to finish us. Then a human cruiser put itself between us and them. They took hits meant for us. Hundreds of them died so we could repair our engines and escape. More stories came then, flooding out from the crowd. Different voices, different species, all with the same theme. Humans fighting, humans dying, humans holding the line when everyone else had run. The Zerion conflict had been 3 years ago. A brutal war that had caught half the galaxy by surprise. 3 different factions fighting for control of critical trade routes. Humans had been involved almost by accident, defending colonies that weren't even theirs. They had been outnumbered, outgunned. Given no chance of success, they had won anyway. But the cost had been devastating. Shill looked down at the uniforms spread across the table. At the medals. At the photographs of young humans who would never grow old. At the letters meant for families who had lost everything. What was your brother's name? He asked softly. Minho. And these others? Syl gestured at the photographs. Your unit? Some of them. Others are from units that served with us. I'm bringing their things to the memorial, to their families. Do-hyun's voice was steady, but there was an ocean of grief beneath it. Today is the 3rd anniversary of Zerion, of the day we held the breach. The Vexarian pilot stepped forward. The breach. I heard about that. The enemy sent everything they had at one section of the station. Tried to reach the civilian sectors. Do-hyun nodded. They sent 400 boarders. Heavy assault troops, the best they had. How many of you were there? 62. When it started, and when it ended? Do-hyun's eyes closed briefly. 4. 4 of us walked away. The mathematics was brutal. 62 humans against 400 enemies, fighting in zero gravity in a damaged station. No reinforcements. No retreat. Just hold the line or let thousands of civilians die. They had held the line. Quen's voice was almost inaudible. Sir, we should give these back to him. Zil nodded slowly. He began carefully gathering the scattered items. The photographs. The letters. The medal which he placed reverently back in its case. The uniform which he folded with clumsy but genuine care. Do-hyun watched him work, his expression unreadable. Zil's hands shook as he tried to fold the uniform. He had folded fabric thousands of times, but now every movement felt wrong. He was acutely aware of the scorch marks under his fingers, the places where the material had been torn and repaired. Each imperfection represented a moment when someone had tried to kill the person wearing this. Let me, Do-hyun said gently. He stepped forward, and this time no one stopped him. The guards watched as he took the uniform from Zil's hands. His movements were precise, automatic. Military training that had been burned into muscle memory. Each fold was exact, each corner aligned perfectly. This wasn't the first time he had folded this uniform. Probably not even the 100th. As he worked, Do-hyun spoke. His voice was quiet, meant for the guards, but in the silence everyone heard. My brother Minho was 26 when he enlisted. I was 24. We joined together, went through training together, made it into drop corps together. He smoothed a crease carefully. That almost never happens. The dropout rate is over 80%. But we both made it. Torm wanted to say something, but no words came out. We did 7 deployments together, watched each other's backs, pulled each other out of bad situations. Do-hyun's hands never stopped moving. On the 8th deployment, we got separated. Different assignments. I went to the outer colonies. He went to Zirion Prime. The crowd was absolutely still. Even those who had been recording had lowered their devices. This felt too private to capture. The battle started without warning. The enemy hit Zirion from 3 directions at once. The station wasn't ready. Nobody was ready. His fingers traced one of the scorch marks. Minho's unit was assigned to protect the civilian sections. Standard defense. Should have been safe. Then they breached, the woman from the crowd said softly. The enemy breached the hull. Do-hyun nodded. 400 elite troops. They knew exactly where to hit. Straight path to the civilian shelters. Thousands of people trapped with nowhere to run. He finished folding the uniform and held it against his chest for a moment, like he was hugging someone who wasn't there. Minho's unit had 62 people. They were supposed to hold for 10 minutes, just long enough for the civilians to evacuate to a safer section. His voice cracked slightly. They held for 6 hours. Someone in the crowd made a sound of disbelief. 6 hours in zero gravity against 400 enemies. No cover, no reinforcements. Running out of ammunition, then air, then everything. But they didn't break. Do-hyun looked up at the guards. When reinforcements finally arrived, they found 4 survivors. 58 dead, and 273 enemy bodies. The mathematics made no sense. It shouldn't have been possible. How? Vrek asked. His voice sounded young suddenly, like he was a child asking for a story. Because they were protecting something worth dying for. Do-hyun placed the folded uniform carefully back into his pack. 3,412 people were in those shelters. Families, children, medical patients who couldn't be moved. People from 20 different species. He picked up the photograph of Minho and looked at it for a long moment. My brother saved a medical ship that day. Not alone. His team did it together. The ship was trying to reach the wounded, but enemy fighters were hunting it. Minho's squad launched early, dropped onto the enemy ships and disabled them from the outside. In vacuum? Someone asked, horrified. In vacuum. Magnetic boots and minimal air supply. They cut through hull plating with plasma torches and dropped charges inside. 3 of them died doing it. But the medical ship got through. He carefully wrapped the photo again. That ship saved thousands of lives in the weeks after, including 300 Krellian refugees from a border colony. Zil's face had gone completely gray now. Krellians? Krellians, Vexarians, Thulians, humans. The medical ship didn't discriminate. Neither did my brother. Do-hyun started gathering the rest of his belongings. That's why he got the Void Star. Not because he killed enemies. Because he saved lives. The old Thulian merchant was crying openly now. Others in the crowd had tears as well, or their species equivalent. Quen found his voice, though it came out broken. Why didn't you tell us? When we first stopped you, why didn't you say you were military? Do-hyun looked at him with eyes that had seen too much. Because I'm not. Not anymore. I got out after Zerion, did my time, buried my friends, and went home. But you're a veteran. You have rights, protections. I have a daughter, Do-hyun said simply. Her name is Hana. She's 6 years old now. She doesn't remember the war. Doesn't remember the year I was gone fighting. He picked up his cracked data pad, looking at the photo of his family. I wanted to go home and be her father. Not a soldier, just a father. He slipped the data pad carefully into his pack. I didn't want to be treated special. Didn't want people to salute or make way or act different. I just wanted to travel like anyone else. Be a regular person going to pay respects to people who can't, but Torm started. You didn't know, Do-hyun interrupted gently. How could you? You saw a human, just another soft skin trying to get through your checkpoint. You made assumptions. He stood up, shouldering his pack. We all make assumptions. Zil stepped forward. I need to apologize formally for myself and my unit. I accept your apology. That's not enough. Zil's voice was firm now, Captain's authority returning. We damaged your property. We disrespected your family and your fallen. We violated basic protocols of decency. He turned to his guards. Freck, get a new data pad from supplies. Military grade. Torm, file a formal incident report. Include our names and our failures. Quen, arrange priority passage for this man. Whatever transport he needs. The 3 guards scattered immediately, grateful for something to do. She'll look back at Do-hyun. It's not enough, he repeated. But it's a start. Thank you, Do-hyun said quietly. Why are you thanking me? I'm the one who... Because you're trying to do better. That's all anyone can do. Do-hyun adjusted his pack. The war is over, we won. But the cost was too high for anyone to celebrate. Every species lost people. Every family has empty spaces. The crowd was pressing closer now, not threatening but curious. Wanting to speak. Wanting to share their own stories or simply be near someone who had been there. The Thulian merchant approached slowly. Sir, may I shake your hand? Do-hyun extended his hand, and the old alien gripped it with surprising strength. Thank you, the Thulian whispered. Thank you for my grandchildren's lives. Others came forward then. A line formed spontaneously. Some wanted to shake his hand. Others just wanted to bow or make their species' gesture of respect. Some pressed small gifts into his hands, tokens of appreciation. A few just touched his shoulder as they passed, saying nothing, letting the gesture speak for them. Through it all, Do-hyun remained patient and gracious, accepting each thanks, each story, each moment of connection. He had come here expecting to pass through unnoticed. Instead, he had become a focal point for something larger, a representative of sacrifice that transcended species. Breck returned with a new data pad, far better than the one that had broken. Please, he said, offering it with both hands. And I'm sorry. Truly sorry. Do-hyun took it and transferred his data from the damaged device. His family's faces appeared on the new screen, crystal clear and undamaged. He smiled slightly at the image. My wife's name is Jiwon, he said to no one in particular. We've been married for 8 years. She waited for me through 4 deployments, never complained, never asked me to quit. He looked up at the guards. When I finally came home from Luxerion, she held me while I cried for 3 days. Then she helped me find reasons to keep living. Your daughter, Quen said softly. Hana. Do-hyun's smile grew a little wider. She wants to be a doctor. Says she wants to help people like her uncle did. She's too young to understand what that really means, but the intention is there. Torm returned with paperwork. Priority clearance. And I've arranged an escort to the next station if you'll accept it. That's not necessary. Please. Torm's voice was almost pleading. Let us do this. Let us do something right. Do-hyun looked at the 4 guards, young, arrogant, careless, but now trying to be better. Trying to understand? All right, he agreed. Thank you. The transport to the next station was smooth and quiet. Do-hyun sat by a window watching stars slide past as they traveled through jump space. The other passengers gave him space, but it was respectful distance now rather than fear or contempt. Word had spread. Even in the few hours since the checkpoint incident, somehow everyone knew. A human veteran. Drop Corps, Zerion survivor, carrying his brother's uniform to the memorial. The story had grown in the telling the way stories do. Some details were exaggerated. Others were simplified. But the core remained true. And with each retelling, something shifted in how people saw humans. At the next station, Do-hyun found that his passage had been upgraded. The station master, a dignified alien with crystalline skin, personally escorted him to a private cabin. Courtesy of the Krellian Guard Service, she explained. They sent ahead with the report. What happened to you should never have happened. They apologized, Do-hyun said. That's enough. Perhaps for you. But we have standards to maintain. She gestured to the cabin. Please. This is the least we can do. Over the next few days of travel, Do-hyun noticed other changes. Ship crews who saw his travel documents treated him with quiet respect. Other passengers, when they learned who he was, shared their own stories. Veterans from other species. Civilians who had been affected by the war. Everyone had something to say about Zerion, about the humans who fought there, about the cost of peace. An elderly Vexarian woman sat with him in the dining area one evening. She didn't ask permission, just settled into the seat across from him and looked at him with sharp, knowing eyes. My son fought at Zerion, she said without preamble. He was a pilot. Shot down over the station during the third day of fighting. I'm sorry, Do-hyun said. He ejected. Floated in vacuum for 2 hours before anyone could reach him. His air was running out. His suit was damaged. He should have died. She leaned forward. A human found him. Drop Corps soldier doing a perimeter sweep. Gave him his own emergency air supply and called for pickup. Do-hyun listened silently. That human waited with my son, kept him calm, kept him alive. When the rescue ship arrived, the human made sure my son got on first, even though the human was injured. Her voice cracked. My son came home because of that. Got to see his children grow up. All because a human stranger chose to save him instead of completing his mission. Do you know the soldier's name? Do-hyun asked gently. Minho. He said his name was Minho. Do-hyun's breath caught. The universe suddenly felt very small. The woman saw his reaction. You knew him. He was my brother. They sat together in silence after that. Two people connected by loss and gratitude, neither needing words. As the journey continued, Do-hyun became aware of a growing movement behind him. News of the checkpoint incident had spread far beyond a single station. It had touched something in the galactic community. A reminder of what the war had cost. A reminder of what humans had given. On the third day, he received a message from Zil. The Krellian captain's face appeared on his datapad, formal and serious. Sir, I wanted to inform you that your incident has prompted changes. The Krellian Guard Service is implementing new training protocols. Cultural sensitivity. Recognition of military service across species. Proper treatment of civilians, especially those carrying memorial items. Zil paused. It's not much. But it's something. It's a good start, Do-hyun replied. There's more. The other guards and I, we've been researching. Learning about the Drop Corps, about Zerion, about what humans did. Zil's reptilian features showed something like shame. We should have known. We should have understood before we acted. You know now. That's what matters. After the call ended, Do-hyun sat looking at his datapad. He opened his messages and found dozens more. From strangers expressing gratitude, from veterans sharing memories, from families of the fallen asking about the memorial service. One message was from a Krellian journalist requesting an interview. Another from a military historian wanting to document his experiences. A third from a school asking if he would speak to students about the war. He politely declined them all. This journey wasn't about him. It was about the people who couldn't make it. Finally, after 2 weeks of travel, Zerion Prime appeared in the viewport. The station had been rebuilt, but you could still see the scars if you knew where to look. Sections that were newer, brighter, hull plating that didn't quite match. Places where repair crews had patched holes that enemy weapons had torn open. The station was busy with ships, more than usual for this time of year. As Do-hyun's transport docked, he realized why. Others had come for the anniversary. Hundreds of them. maybe thousands. Veterans from a dozen species, families of the fallen, civilians who had been saved, all converging on this place to remember. He disembarked carrying only his backpack. The station corridors were marked with signs directing people to the memorial. He followed them along with streams of other visitors. Some walked in silence, others talked quietly, sharing memories. The memorial occupied an entire section of the station, a vast chamber with one wall open to space, protected by a force field that allowed visitors to see the stars. The wall opposite was covered in names. Thousands upon thousands of names organized by species, by unit, by date of death. In the center of the chamber stood a sculpture, abstract, showing figures from different species standing together, reaching upward. At its base was an inscription in multiple languages. Do-hyun had read it before, but he read it again now. They held the line. They held each other. They held on to hope when hope seemed lost. They gave everything so others could have tomorrow. People moved through the memorial slowly, reverently. Some left flowers or tokens. Others simply stood before the names, paying silent respects. A few wore uniforms, though most were in civilian clothes. Do-hyun found Minho's name on the wall. It was engraved in both Korean and Galactic Standard, along with his rank, his unit, and the date. Below it were the names of the others from his unit. All 62 who had started that day, 58 who never left. He carefully removed the items from his backpack. Letters from families, photographs, small personal effects that parents, siblings, children, and friends had sent with him. He had promised to bring them here, to leave them at the memorial, to make sure their loved ones were remembered not just as names on a wall, but as people who had lived and been loved. One by one, he placed them at the base of the wall. Each item represented a person. Each person represented a hole in someone's life that would never completely heal. When he was done, he stood back and saluted. The military gesture felt natural despite the years since he'd worn a uniform. He held the salute for a long moment, saying goodbye to brothers and sisters he would never see again. They would be proud of you. The voice came from beside him, a human woman, older, wearing a drop-course dress uniform with commander's insignia. She was missing her left arm, the sleeve pinned up neatly. "Commander," Do-hyun acknowledged. "At ease, soldier." She smiled slightly. "I'm retired too, but old habits die hard." She looked at the wall of names. "I commanded the reinforcement unit. We arrived 6 hours after the breach. Found your brother and 3 others still fighting, still holding. You saved them, they saved themselves. We just showed up to witness it." She turned to face him fully. "I've been coming here every year, talking to families, making sure people remember, making sure the story doesn't get forgotten or romanticized." "What story should people remember?" Do-hyun asked. "That war is hell. That victory costs. That sometimes good people have to do terrible things to protect innocence." She gestured at the memorial, "but also that when the worst happens, the best of us rise up. Human, Krellian, Vexarian, Thulian. Doesn't matter. When it counts, people choose to stand together." They stood side by side for a while, watching other visitors move through the memorial. "I heard about the checkpoint incident," the commander said eventually. "It's spreading. People are talking about it. About you, about how you handled it. I didn't do anything special. You chose dignity over anger, understanding over revenge. That's special." She glanced at him. "You could use your status as a veteran to make those guards' lives hell. You could demand punishment. Instead, you accepted their apology and moved on. They made a mistake. They're learning from it. That's all I can ask." "That's exactly my point," she smiled. "Your brother would be proud. The whole Corps would be." Do-hyun's datapad chimed. A message from G1. Just a photo of Hana holding a drawing she'd made. It showed 3 stick figures, a mother, a father, and a child all smiling under a yellow sun. "Your family?" the commander asked. "My wife and daughter. They're waiting for me to come home." "Then you should go. Don't spend too long here. The dead don't need our vigil." "The living do," Do-hyun nodded. He took one last look at the wall, at Minho's name among so many others, then turned to leave. As he walked back through the station, he passed other travelers. Some recognized him now, either from the news or from word of mouth. They nodded respectfully. A few thanked him quietly. He acknowledged each one but didn't stop. He had one more message to send before he caught his transport home. He opened his datapad and recorded a short video. Hi, Hana, Daddy will be home soon. I went to where Uncle Minho is remembered and I told him about you. About your drawing and your dreams of being a doctor. The cloth fell away completely, revealing dark fabric underneath. Quen held it up, expecting something valuable or embarrassing. Instead, he found what appeared to be clothing. Military clothing, though he didn't recognize the style immediately. Just a uniform? Torm laughed. All that fuss over an old uniform? Quen shook the bundle, and more items tumbled out onto the inspection table. Small personal effects carefully packaged. Letters in sealed plastic. A few photographs. A medal in a protective case. These scattered across the surface, some falling to the floor. Dohyun moved forward instinctively, but Rek blocked his path. Stay where you are, soft skin. Those don't belong to me, Dohyun said, his voice tight. They're for the families. Please don't tell us what to do, Zil interrupted. He picked up one of the photographs that had fallen. It showed a young man in the same dark uniform, smiling at the camera. The resemblance to Dohyun was striking. Brothers, perhaps. Who's this? Your twin? Dohyun didn't answer. His hands had curled into fists at his sides, but he remained still. Torm snatched another photo. This one showed a group of humans, all in uniform, standing together on what looked like a military vessel. They looked young, confident, unaware of whatever future awaited them. Look at them. Playing soldier. Humans and their war games, Quen added. He was still holding the uniform, examining it with mock interest. What is this anyway? Some kind of costume? The fabric was clearly high quality, even to an untrained eye. It was made from dark, almost black material that seemed to absorb light. The cut was practical, designed for function rather than decoration. There were reinforced sections at the shoulders and knees, strange closures that looked more advanced than simple buttons or zippers. But the guards weren't interested in the craftsmanship. They were interested in the entertainment. Try it on, Quen, Rek suggested. Let's see how a real warrior looks in human costume. The crowd had grown larger now. More travelers had stopped to watch the spectacle. Some looked uncomfortable. Others seemed entertained. A few recorded the scene on personal devices. No one intervened. Quen held the uniform up to his body. It was far too small for his Krellian frame. I think it's broken. What kind of soldier is this tiny? Human soldiers, Torm said with a snort. Fragile little things. Probably just for show. Dohyun spoke again, his voice very quiet. Please stop. The 3 words hung in the air. There was something in his tone that was different now. Not pleading. Not angry. Something else. Something that made a few of the watching aliens shift uncomfortably. Chill heard it too, but he misinterpreted it. He thought the human was embarrassed. Ashamed of his species' military attempts, trying to hide how weak they really were. What's wrong? Seal asked with false concern. Are you embarrassed? Don't want everyone to see what human warriors wear. It's not about that, Dohyun said. Then what is it about? Rek pushed. Why so sensitive about an old uniform? Dohyun looked down at his belongings scattered across the floor. The cracked data pad showing his wife and daughter. The letters meant for grieving families. The photographs of people who would never smile again. He took a slow breath. That uniform is not mine to be embarrassed about, Quen laughed. Then whose is it? Your brother's? He gestured at the photograph Zil was still holding. Did he get kicked out of the military? Is that why you're so touchy? Put it down, Dohyun said. Still quiet, still controlled. But there was something building beneath the surface now. Something the guards couldn't quite identify. Make me, Quen challenged. The Thulian merchant in the crowd spoke up suddenly, his voice nervous. Perhaps you should listen to him. Zil turned on the merchant. Did I ask for your opinion? The Thulian stepped back, but his large eyes remained fixed on the uniform in Quen's hands. He had noticed something that made his skin go pale. Torm was examining the metal he'd picked up from the floor. It was a simple thing, made of dark metal, shaped like a star with a hollow center. He'd seen medals before from dozens of different militaries across the galaxy. They all loved giving out little tokens for minor achievements. This was probably no different. What's this one for? Torm asked mockingly. Best attendance? Most polished boots? Dohyun's jaw clenched. Put it back in the case. Answer the question, soft skin. You wouldn't understand. That was the wrong thing to say. Sil's eyes flashed with anger. Wouldn't understand? You think we're stupid? We've been fighting wars since before your species discovered fire. I didn't mean... Tell us what this metal is for, Sil demanded. Or I'll throw it in the recycling unit right now. The crowd gasped. Several aliens looked genuinely shocked at the threat. Destroying someone's military honors, regardless of species, was a serious breach of conduct. But Zil was angry now, and angry Krellians didn't think clearly. Dohyun's voice dropped even lower. That metal belonged to my brother. He died earning it. It's meant for his daughter, who was 2 years old when he left and 3 when they sent his body home. Please, just put it back in the case. Torm hesitated for the first time. There was something in the human's voice that cut through the mockery. Real grief, real loss. The kind that transcended species, but Quen wasn't done. He shook the uniform out fully, letting it unfold to its complete length. As he did, patches and insignia became visible. Words in human languages. Symbols that meant nothing to him. Numbers and codes. Look at all these decorations, Quen said. Humans do love their ribbons and badges. Makes them feel important. A Vexarian pilot in the crowd suddenly went very still. She was staring at the uniform with wide eyes, her breathing quickened. She took a step forward, then stopped herself. What is it? Her companion asked. That symbol, she whispered, pointing with a shaking hand. On the shoulder. Quen glanced at where she was pointing. There was a patch there, embroidered in silver thread against the dark fabric. It showed a circle with something falling through it. A human figure in armor, dropping through atmosphere or space. Words curved around the circle in human script. So? Quen asked. What about it? The Vexarian pilot swallowed hard. That's the drop core. The words meant nothing to most of the crowd, but to those who knew. To those who had been anywhere near the war zones 3 years ago, those 2 words changed everything. Torm's hands went numb. The metal slipped from his fingers and clattered to the floor. Breck took a step backward, his eyes fixed on the uniform. Shill's face began to change color, the green shifting toward gray, and Quen, still holding the uniform, looked down at what he was carrying with sudden, terrible understanding. Dohyun stood perfectly still, watching them realize. His voice was steady when he spoke again. I asked you politely to put it down. In the crowd, the old Thulian merchant closed his eyes and began to pray.